Hi, welcome to Pyrography Made Easy. I'm Brenda. In this episode, I'm going to test out 5 different erasers for pyrography and compare how well they remove burn strokes. I'll start with the obvious eraser, which is sandpaper. So let's get started. Sandpaper. The first eraser is sandpaper. I am using a piece of sandpaper that is 240 grit. Sandpaper will completely remove all burn marks, but it can take some work and a bit of time to accomplish this. You can fold the sandpaper into small squares and points for more precise sanding or working in small areas. There are sanding sticks, sanding twigs, and emery sanding boards available in different grits and sizes to make sanding in small areas easier. Like I said, I am using 240 grit sandpaper. I should have gotten a coarser piece of sandpaper because it would have removed the burn marks much faster. As it was, I got tired of sanding and quit before the burn marks were completely removed. After I was done with the initial testing, I got some 100 grit sandpaper and removed the last of the dark burn marks. Unfortunately, I got carried away with my sanding and sanded through the top layer of plywood. At that point, I ruined the board. It is now unfit for burning on. The reason is that I have exposed the glue layer of the plywood, and you should never burn on that. And the wood is a little bit darker, so now I have a permanent dark spot. Here's the point where I should have stopped, and this is where I actually stopped. By then, the board was damaged. Scrapers. Scrapers are the next eraser. Scrapers are what I tend to use most often to fix mistakes and lighten up burn marks. I have an assortment of scrapers that I keep in a jar along with other items that I use often in pyrography. Almost any flat metal surface will work as a scraper. And like the sandpaper, it will remove all of the burn marks if you scrape long enough in the area. I have several X-Acto knives with different sized blades on them that I use. I also use a box cutter, but I use the non-cutting edge on it. I pick the knife based on the size of the area I need to fix. So that's why I have an assortment of knife sizes. Most of the time, I use my number 11 pointed blade, probably because of its versatility. Using the flat of the blade scrapes away small areas pretty quickly. Plus, the tip or the point of the blade can be used to create very thin lines in the burn marks. This technique can be used to create white whiskers. A word of caution about this particular blade. It can be very easy to gouge deeply into the wood with it. So use the flat of the blade when fixing mistakes. Old Medic Bill suggested using a scalpel because it wouldn't gouge into the wood like the pointed blades can. Bill, I bought one and it works great. Thanks for the suggestion. Sanding pen. The next eraser to test out is a sanding pen. Sanding pens are made out of fiberglass and are designed to remove rust from metal. They are extremely abrasive, so use a light pressure when erasing with one, as they can quickly gouge into the wood, especially plywoods and softwoods. Sanding pens can remove a lot of the burn mark, so they're great to lighten up burns that got too dark. Plus, the tiny tip allows for working in small areas. Do not buy a sanding pen advertised for cleaning wristwatches or clocks. While they are a lot cheaper, they are too soft to remove burn marks in pyrography. Since they are made out of fiberglass, don't brush over the area with your hand to remove the dust, as you can get a piece of fiberglass stuck in your finger. I had a tough time seeing the little thing to remove it. Ink pen eraser. Now I'm testing out an ink pen eraser. I've also seen them called sand erasers. This type of eraser can be used to lighten up areas without worrying about damaging the surface of the wood. The downside is that it doesn't keep a point very well, so it's not great for small or precision work. I use this eraser to gently lighten up areas. By that I mean I use it only when I want to remove a little color from the burn. Electric eraser. The last eraser I'm testing out is an electric eraser. It is my latest discovery and one I continue to find creative uses for. When equipped with the right type of eraser, this thing does an awesome job of removing burn marks with very little effort. Plus, the small tip allows for some fairly precise work. There are a number of brands available, and some are better than others for the heavy-duty work like I'm doing. I will have a link to the brand I'm using in the description below. Now, as I mentioned before, you need to have the right type of eraser to get good results in pyrography. So let me show you what I mean by that. The standard eraser that ships with electric erasers are white vinyl erasers. They are good for graphite and charcoal, but not for pyrography burn marks. The blue erasers are labeled as ink erasers, but they can't erase burn marks either. Recently I found some real ink erasers and they work wonderfully. The edge of a fresh eraser can remove thin lines of color. Once the eraser becomes dome-shaped, it can remove much wider bands of color. And if needed, you can cut that dome top off and end up with a nice edge for doing thin lines again. Back to the regular demo. As you saw, using an electric eraser in pyrography requires equipping it with the right type of eraser. The brand I found is manufactured by Sun Dolphin, and I will put a link to that item in the description below. I have found that using the electric eraser can be controlled with hand speed. If I slow my hand down, so I'm not moving it around the board as quickly, I remove more color than when I move my hand faster. Moving my hand quickly will just lighten up the burn marks by a few shades. If I hold the eraser in one place or move it very slowly, almost all of the burn marks can be removed. Sandpaper will remove all of the burn marks. How long that takes depends on the grit you're using. Coarse or low grit paper will take less time than fine or high grit paper. If sanding on plywood, be careful not to sand through the top layer. If you do, you have ruined the board. If you are using a piece of sandpaper like I did, it can be difficult to sand in small areas where precision is needed. Scrapers can remove all of the burn marks. Depending on the size of the scraper, very precise color removal can be achieved. But use caution, as scrapers can gouge into the wood, depending on what you're using. Spot sanding pens are made out of fiberglass and they can remove most of the burn marks. They are very abrasive and can easily gouge into the wood, especially plywoods and softwoods like basswood or linden. Ink pen erasers can lighten up burn marks, but they're not very effective on really dark burn marks. Plus, they don't keep a point or small edge on them very well, so they're not very good for precise work. Electric erasers can remove most of the burn marks, but only if equipped with gray ink erasers. They can be used in small areas where precision is needed. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you found the information informative. In the description below, I will put a link to some of the products that I used. On my website, Pyrography Made Easy, I have a number of written tutorials and free patterns and reference photos for your use. Feel free to check it out anytime. Well, thank you for watching my video, and I will see you next week.